Welcome back to Junction 119. This is Kellan.
And this is Casen.
And we are back yet again. We're chugging right through January. It's nice being able to do this every single week, every single
Hmm.
the consistency. I mean, what's nice about January and the way we kind of cover the playoffs, Kason, is it really reminds me of the very beginning. Like there's something almost nostalgic, especially now that we're
Yeah.
officially past 2 years of the show. Happy 2 year anniversary to you, my friend.
Yeah. Happy 2 year anniversary. Yeah.
Haha.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely there's some nostalgia in there because we're still talking about the same things we were talking about 2 years ago. We'll get to that later. We'll get
Yeah,
to that later.
it is a little bit staggering and creepy how almost to the exact T you could play a segment from when we first started 2 years ago, right now, or a year ago. And genuinely, at first, I probably wouldn't be able to know exactly where you are in terms of the year. And we're going to get into that. Obviously, we're going to talk about NFC, AFC championship games. We're going to talk about an update to the coaching carousel. But it had dawned on Kason and I that we had a pretty light lineup. And spoiler alert, you're not getting another show from us until after the Super Bowl. So just getting that out of the way now because we're taking the week off next week leading into it. We're going to dive into, what'd you say, a state of the association. We haven't talked about the NBA yet this year, and we haven't talked
Yeah.
about the NHL yet this year, hence why we both are decked out in our respective teams, my friend. Kaysen's rocking his Knights, his Golden Knights garb, and I've got the Pens hat on, one of my oldest, actually. Um, Kaysen, you know how when you move and well, it's been a while since you've moved, but when you move and you just find a whole bunch of clothes that you forgot where
Yeah.
were,
Yeah.
yeah, this is
Yeah.
one of those hats for me. It's if you're listening, it's a Pens hat with the Pens logo on the front. It's a beanie, but it just says Pittsburgh on the top. It's very laid back. It's very comfortable.
Yeah.
So I am ready to dive in. We're starting with a state of the association, some NBA discussion. This is typically a Casen-led discussion. Unless you have anything more to add to the front end to the opener, man, you can kind
No,
of
yeah. I
decide
mean,
where we dive in.
we can get into that. I mean, yeah. We've talked a little bit just about how the Cavs were storming out to a pretty shockingly good start. And it's been a fun ride, and so far, and we'll kind of step back and sort of talk about some of the bigger pictures stories here in the association. As of now, Cavs kind of had a bit of a lull here to dealing with some stuff, and January's been not so great, but they're
The Cleveland
still.
Cavaliers are still in single digit losses though. They're
Yeah,
37 and 9.
yeah, so they're 37-9. They're not quite on pace for what could have been, a record-setting beating the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah.
It was looking like that at one point, but yeah, they're still just a half game back from leading the league in behind the Thunder. And so they're still in first place in the East by a whole 5.5 games on Boston right now. So that's good. So just if we're looking at the whole, the top of the league is Oklahoma City, and
Which
then
is,
Cleveland.
I'm just interjecting. They are also 5.5 in front of Houston at 37 and
Oh
and
yeah,
8.
yeah.
They're actually the same. So the Thunder, which I actually saw I got one of those ESPN buzz alerts today being Wednesday when we're recording this, that the Thunder are at the top of the newest, like, quote unquote power rankings. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, they have one less loss than the Cavs. That's why. But
Actually, if you really want to look at it, like I'm looking at the standings.
mhm.
If you just go down the list of like the games back from the position on the East, it's 5.5, 6.5, 10.5, 11.5, 13.5, down to sixth place. And then on the West, it's 5.5, 7, 9.5, 11, 11.5. So they're all relatively the same
Oh, yeah.
on both sides. It's those two leading both sides, and then kind of a pretty close race beyond that uh, for everywhere else. So. It could get pretty interesting because if you look at the East specifically, there's a lot of talk about Boston. Despite this is just how it feels for me. Like despite the Cavs like historic season for it being like their best season ever with not LeBron James on the roster, uh Boston's getting all the love. There people are still talking repeat for Boston. I don't really understand
Well,
why,
they're the
but
reigning champions, and I do kind of
mhm.
understand where that hype is coming from. I think Tatum's also a very likable player. Like he seems to really like after they won last year, it felt like the gravitas towards the face of the league was really him arriving. I think and honestly, just Boston over Cleveland, they're always going to have that market issue. I think they're just uh the basic attention that both of those franchises get is always going to warrant that. I actually did ironically, Casen, I was on a plane at the time that the Cavaliers and Celtics first met this season. I was literally
Mhm.
I watched the entire second half on a plane. And I was able to just because they had the direct TV
Yeah.
setup. And the Cavs came back at the one where the Cavs came back and won. I think it was the first matchup of the season. And
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. I'm like 80% sure. But yeah, and it was just sort of the lead into that game just felt very Celtics heavy. And I'm like, is the story takeaway not how the Cavs came back and beat the champions? It's about how the champions lost the game. Like it was really weird how the narrative of that story was taken. And so I was like, okay, so this is your Eastern matchup. I honestly kind of hope this is the finals, if I'm being honest with you, Cason. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm sorry. I got off on a tangent there. Go ahead.
No, I mean,
Yeah,
that's what I was saying. It was just it's felt very, I guess, frustrating, just sort of like seeing everybody talk about everybody else and kind of ignoring. I mean, and it's kind of the same thing. I mean, I think the Thunder are getting some amount of like they're getting a more amount of praise for their season, and I think that might be just because people are used to talking up the Thunder because of the Westbrook Durant years, and so it's just like the market for the Thunder is weirdly bigger than Cleveland. Um,
well, and
I
you
don't know.
know,
It definitely just feels it just feels like they're not
y-
caring enough about it being the best season the team has ever had without LeBron James.
I agree, and I will say I think partially that just comes from the natural. It's not just the market thing because I definitely have heard more about the Knicks as well. I feel this year than the Cavs. Just to kind of put that onto
Hmm.
the same umbrella. But I also go back to this whole idea of no one cares until you win. Like, if the Cavs can be the team to actually knock out the champs this year, that would be the narrative of things finally
Yeah.
shifting in the East in their direction, especially at a time where the league has never felt more wide open in terms of like parity, like who
Hmm.
actually can win the title. I at least that's and partially that I think that actually kind of assisted the Celtics last year, and that it was kind of an up for grabs. And it's like, okay, finally the Celtics are able to take that step forward and get it done. So I don't know. I think there's part of that too. I think the Cavs need to warrant that attention at the end of the season rather than just in
That's
the
fair.
regular season.
That's fair.
So I think
Yeah,
that's
I
just where it's coming from.
that's fair. And I you mentioned him just a second ago. The thing to watch is the New York Knicks are just a game back from Boston, so that'll be a tight race between those two. Because if the Celtics are, gunning to make it back there, they're gonna have to watch themselves because they could end up, in the three seed, and they don't want to have to deal with that on their path back to the finals. So,
Very true. I do have a question for you, and it's mainly because the trade deadline is 1 week away from when you're going to hear the show, the 30th of January.
hmm.
The trade deadline is literally February 6th in the NBA, and it's noteworthy that I point that out because the NHL still has a whole month until
Yeah.
theirs is in the first week of March. And so I'm just kind of wondering, are there any moves you can see happening that could affect the East? I mean, I'm just theorizing because I'll be real. I haven't paid attention to that era, that realm of the NBA so much this season. I just feel
Yeah.
like within a week of probably a bunch of at least a couple of names probably shifting around just from what
Yeah,
I've
I
read.
mean, there's always a couple trades every year that are usually done. I I'm not. so sure if anything's going to be done affecting, the better teams. Like I don't really think Cleveland's going to do anything just because I mean they don't really have, they wouldn't trade anybody to screw
No.
up their roster, and they don't really have the assets to get anybody. Um,
I want Zach LaVine on
so
the
I don't,
Bulls to somehow end up somewhere else.
yeah.
I want the 20 and 27 10th place Chicago Bulls that I'm a fan of to blow it up a bit. Maybe not entirely, but blow it up a little bit.
Yeah,
just one fan's request.
I mean a lot of things of what people are saying is Jimmy Butler. There's some talk about because there's the big conversation is Jimmy Butler sort of
Of
once
course.
again being a locker room nightmare and causing a lot of issues. He got a sussy for blowing up at a practice. Actually, again, like it's weirdly exactly what
Yeah,
happened in Minnesota,
it's
and it's
exactly
like,
what
oh,
happened.
he blew up in practice, and I was like, didn't this happen like 7 years ago?
It did. Like it's literally the same thing again. That's funny.
So yeah, death taxes and Jimmy Butler picking fights in practice.
Well, and
Um,
it really makes me wonder because that story kind of came and went, and we were bogged down with other things. But I remember thinking at the time, and I almost asked you, like, it gets to a place where when certain things start to happen with certain players, it's like, okay, is this player's legacy? Jimmy Butler has gotten to that point now. Like
yeah,
to me he's kind of like a James Harden in that, okay, you're just going around the league and trying to find something that you'll never find, clearly. Like I don't know what it's going to take to make you happy, but and James Harden's like the worst example. Like he's moved around teams and the same stuff's happened. Jimmy Butler, it seems that he has what, four good seasons at a place, maybe makes a run with them, maybe doesn't, and then just explodes and it goes this way. I don't
yeah.
know. I don't know.
I,
And we've glazed Jimmy Butler on this show before, obviously, for his title runs and
Yeah,
things of that
I mean,
nature.
yeah. It's just the issue with Jimmy Butler is that now he's definitely not in his prime anymore,
No.
and it's just who knows what he has left. And exactly, you're what exactly are you looking for?
Right.
Because you pushed your way out of Minnesota because you were mad nobody else cared enough about winning, and then you go to the Sixers who are contending. I mean, they're trying to at least. And then you go to the Heat, which Heat culture is winning and competing
Yeah.
and hard. So it's like I don't know what you're looking for. Like you get
Well,
mad because Minnesota doesn't care enough, then you're mad that Miami cares too much. Like
and
I don't know what you're like. I don't know.
and what's interesting is, I think I even remember pointing out to you when they were on their most recent run a couple of years ago against the Nuggets, in the finals. I could have never foreseen this because I was really like he arrived in Chicago at like kind of the tail end there of the D Rose years,
Yeah,
and he was kind of a bench player among those guys. And I remember when he left the Bulls in 2017, from every metric, I was happy he was out of the building. Like literally everything I read about this dude was like, okay, so he wants out and all that stuff. And then it's just kind of strange to see, he's got the 2 years at the Wolves, the Sixers, but this whatever kept him happy the last like what 5 years, 6 years at the Heat. Whenever it goes bad, it goes bad spectacularly with this guy. I don't know, but even the fact that he was carrying that team at what 33 years old, like he's now 35. I don't know. I like Jimmy Butler, which is why it sucks to have this conversation. But it's one we didn't get a chance to have at the time. Sorry to sidetrack you.
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it just begs the question of like, I mean, what do you have left to offer? I mean, like, so I don't know. Some people think he might end up going to the Suns to be some kind of depth piece over there. I don't know. I would be hard pressed to think that he gets another contract from anybody at this point. I mean, it's just kind of I don't
Yeah.
know. It's just one of those things where you're like, your career could have gone very differently if you know you had a bit of a different attitude about certain things. But
Yeah, if you found a way to coexist with the things inside of an organization that aren't going your way, as opposed to expecting an organization to completely bend over backwards and give you everything,
mhm.
I just feel like the potential of that happening in the NBA is high, and it's like, well, if you had just kind of been a role, you could have remained a superstar on any of these places. Quite frankly, you would have been the franchise guy. So I don't know. Um, I'll let you continue into other topics, other stories to touch on as we.
Yeah, I mean I think another story that I think we might have touched on earlier because I know we did kind of briefly discuss the NBA a
Mhm.
couple months ago, but the the Bucks, I mean they're the four spot. The story has kind of been the Bucks were riding high and they fired their coach and now they aren't as good because they just had to get Doc Rivers. I don't really understand the context of that one, but yeah, it to me ultimate Jimmy Haslam move. I That's what you get. I mean, the it there was a moment when the Cavs beat the Bucks and Jimmy Haslam was at the game and it was just like everybody was just like, yeah, suck to suck, Jimmy, like we hate you. This whole city hates you, man.
Yeah, it is.
Like Miles Garrett was down there and he was just like, hey, hey.
Yeah, I'm curious. Like, do you have a clear front in terms of who we should look for down the stretch? I mean, I think even a week from now could do a lot to change. But I mean, I guess realistically, this is one of those things where you are a fan yet again of a team that's quite literally leading the league, one of the two anyway. And I guess I'm just kind of curious as to what are the chances the Cavs have? Like, who has chances this year beyond just the normal contenders?
Yeah, I mean, they they have to keep themselves like focused. Um, it's a long season, and so I would say I like the Cavs' chances. I mean, they've beaten Boston. They've shown they can do it, and that was the problem last year. And so they for how close they came last year,
Hmm.
they seem to have fixed those problems. So if they can at least stay the or keep the pace and get the one seed, I like their chances. I mean, in a 7 game series against Boston, but
I like their chances against
um,
anyone, honestly, if I'm being real. Uh, I
I don't know how they would I don't know how it would go against in a hypothetical finals against the Thunder, but
well,
we'll
that's
see.
that one thing at a time. I'm more in terms of the East. I'm just, I don't know. I just is that a finals we're going to be paying a lot of close attention to with rooting interest come June. I'm just saying, I'm planting a seed.
Yeah, I hope so. Certainly, yeah. I mean, I'll the thing I'll just tell people to watch out for is, um, just keep an eye on Boston, New York, because that fight for the 2 seed, I think is going to be pretty close. I would say watch Milwaukee, but they're 4 games behind New York, so it's just kind of like there's not really, at least at this point, there's not much drama beyond the 3 seed because it's everybody is multiple, games back. But I will say, I mean, outside of that, the Bulls right now are as of now in a play-in game. So
They sure are.
the
They're the last team in.
and
Uh,
and and, who, and you know who's not? The Sixers. The Sixers missing the playoffs would be so funny to me.
that would be
Just
something.
so funny.
It would be. I'm looking at offensive leaders, and Memphis Grizzlies are averaging 123.3 points a game. Cavaliers are number two, actually, 121.8 points a game. You may not think of this team as offensively, although that's probably a stupid thing for me to say. The Nuggets are third in terms of
Uh,
average points per game,
uh,
120.6. And I don't know. I just was thinking about the Nuggets because uh, just Nikola Jokic's full court shot, which was awesome. Like we could get
yeah, yeah.
and again, just looking in his regular Joker fashion, does it doesn't even care. It's great. Like, okay, cool, awesome. I did another good thing in basketball.
Can I see horse now? Mhm.
Yeah, seriously, whatever gets me out of this work job close. I mean, just I a big I'm genuinely a fan of Nikola Jokic's in that regard. Like, it's fantastic. But is that all you got for the NBA?
Well, that was just the East. I'll just
Okay,
sort
talk
of
about the
just
West.
I'll just touch on the West real quick. The West is a little bit tighter, like all the way down. The Thunder have, like we said earlier, a 5.5 game lead, but beyond that, it's really only 6 games separates the 2 through the 6. So that will be a little bit tighter to determine, home court in the 1 through 4 seeds. Because as of now, the Lakers have a 5 seed, so um and they're only a couple games back from the Nuggets. So yeah, it keep an eye on the West. The West will be a little bit tighter for the home court seeds on that one.
I would agree, and it's so much so the case that the Suns, Mavericks, and Kings are all at the bottom of that. They're all in
Yeah.
play-ins right now, which when you see who's above them, obviously the Lakers, Clippers, Grizzlies, Rockets, it makes sense. But also when you look at everyone's record, it's like, okay, yeah, but everyone's basically right there. Like everyone's within like a couple of wins, a couple of results of each other. So that's probably been my biggest surprise is just that like your usual suspects like the Mavs aren't towards the top of the
Hmm.
West this year. But they're definitely in the mix. You know what I mean? All of these teams are in the mix. But again, they're all relatively close, like you said. So
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think it's a
and
little
it's
misleading when you look at the standings.
I will just say, just to point out, you think about who was leading the East 10 years ago.
Yeah.
The Cavs. Who is leading the East now? The Cavs. Who was leading the West 10 years ago? Golden State, the Spurs, the Trailblazers. Where are they now? The basement of the West.
Yeah.
That's right. Cavs are forever, eternal. Those teams are the basement of the league. Trash organizations. Terrible. Fire everyone.
Wow. Wow. What a terrible take,
Steph Curry,
actually.
irrelevant. Irrelevant.
I mean, kind of, yeah. I mean, not in the sense of like in general, but like, yes, the old guard is aging out, as tends to happen in the in all of sports, which is going to be a theme in my when we touch on the ice time here.
Yeah, yeah. Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was mostly what I had. So yeah, as a good note, we can use that as the transition to the NHL.
Yes, we can. And I will pop in here to say that it's weird because I haven't paid as close attention to the NHL this year as I have in previous years. Partially that's been honestly, and I'm just being honest because of work. I'm actually more focused on things in another sport these days. If
Hmm.
if you know kind of thing. It was easier to cover the NHL and pay attention when, quite frankly, I was hockey SID and or was among more hockey centered things, but that's just not the case anymore in terms of a work sense. So um, I wanted to kind of start off though here by saying that, and this it needs to be addressed. Probably the story of the year, at least the feel good story of the year, has been the Blue Jackets, the Columbus Blue Jackets. At least for me, just with the
Hmm.
loss of Johnny Gaudreau, which we acknowledged on our show. But it's the kind of sports story that, because it's a niche sport, hockey is kind of goes under the radar. But I mean, any team in any major American sport or just major sport in the country in the world really, where your genuine superstar passes away before the season starts, that team in a lot of respects would be forgotten about, just completely, just kind of said, you know what, there's no way that they're going to be able to continue. They would have just kind of been an afterthought. And it's really interesting to see the Blue Jackets really carve it out. I'm not saying they're top of the league or anything, but I think they're genuinely playing like a playoff team, and I think they're going to try to really push to do that. And I think hockey is the kind of sport case in which I kind of wanted to ask you this when I was thinking about this story earlier and what I wanted to mention it to you. it's sort of interesting how the unit, obviously, in hockey is more important than one individual player. And when there's something to play for, it's interesting. But it gave me the vibes of like the Golden Knights, in the sense
Hmm.
of when you're forgotten about, left for dead, whatever you want to say. Genuinely speaking, it's not surprising to me that this team is playing above and beyond and over their heads. Any thoughts on anything like that?
Yeah, you're right. And I will say the Blue Jackets organization has been through a lot
Absolutely.
because I can say this is not even the first time in the last 5 years that the team has lost somebody on the roster and then they've actually played well to sort of rally around. Like that's literally happened before
Right.
recently.
It's happened in
And
their
so
history
that
before.
it's incredibly sad that that's happened multiple times in fairly short time distances from each other. Um, and so the organization as a whole is has been through a lot, and it's good to see them sort of channeling that to get closer, be a much more tight knit unit on and off the ice.
Absolutely. Beyond that, I'll be the one to just go ahead and acknowledge that it seems that Ovechkin, Capitals, and others seem to be at the timeless. They're towards the top. You've got the Metro, the Hurricanes, your usual suspects. New York, New Jersey Devils towards the top, leading the Metro. In the Eastern, you have Toronto Maple Leafs, Florida Panthers, reigning champions, the Ottawa Senators, and then of course, in the West, teams again that continuously get forgotten about because they are in the West and because of where they're at. But once again, Winnipeg Jets are always towards the top. Dallas Stars are obviously always towards the top. Minnesota Wild have been a little bit of a surprise this year. The team that I am genuinely pulling for this year in the Pacific, the Edmonton Oilers, are at the top of the Pacific,
Okay.
above your squad, the Vegas Golden Knights, number two, and number three, the Los Angeles Kings. Now, any thoughts on what I said? I mean, you're a Knights fan. You can talk about the West in ways that I can't. I can really mainly talk about the East and how, you know, done and dusted my Penguins are. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean I'll say the Oilers can crash and burn, and I hope McDavid never wins anything ever.
Whoa.
No.
That's understandable, actually.
Uh no, yeah, I mean I'm frustrated and annoyed to see the Kings doing this well. They they were like absolutely god awful a couple years ago, and it was so entertaining. And then now they're actually back in the playoffs, and it frustrates me. Um, I am just very happy to see the Sharks in the basement. That's where they belong. Yeah, I look interesting. I mean, we've got Utah. Utah's a thing.
Yep.
Interesting. Um, Still don't have a name because they keep losing their trademark requests. So that'll
Yeah,
be,
they recently, I guess, lost the trademark request for Yetis, which is like incredibly disappointing.
I guess. Yeah. I don't. Somebody was saying that was because of the coolers. I don't know. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I don't
I,
know.
I guess,
Um.
yeah. In terms of
I
trademark law, yeah.
so there's only one option that they have left, and the Utah Fighting Book of Mormons.
I mean, I wondered if you were gonna joke about that. I mean, I think they'll come up with something, but I would really, really not like if they ended up with a name that like just is so clearly bottom of the barrel, like
I
last one
okay.
available. That would be really bad. That'd be dumb.
Think about this. Think about this.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. I'm thinking about
The
it.
Utah Ice Jazz.
Um, the Utah Jazzer size, but like spell size like ice. I mean,
The U
just,
the Utah Jazz on ice.
yeah, jazz on. Actually, I like that. Yeah, so give them a name that makes even less sense than the fact that the Utah Jazz is a team name that actually still exists. Um, yeah, I mean, exactly. It's kind of a
I
story. If you're a
where
Utah sports fan, it's
yeah,
sort of like,
no.
yeah, we're used to this. I mean,
I no, I am being totally honest when I tell you we are a couple trademark denials away from getting the Utah Bees. Like we are that close.
I
I
mean,
I mean the bee is the official state insect or whatever we want to call it. The
oh,
bees on
really?
the flag. Yeah, yeah.
I did not
Bees
know
are a
that. That's
thing.
cool.
I don't know if it's a Mormon thing or a Utah thing. Bees are a thing. It's on their flag, whatever. So I if they can't get anything better, they
Shout out
might
to the
just end up
bees.
settling for like bees or something. I don't know.
Hashtag save the bees? Question mark. Hey, that would be cool. Something like insect oriented. Hey, it would work for a hockey team. I think if you got to do something like that.
Yeah, it could work.
It's a yellow jacket slash like hornets or something like that would be something that's a generic that's a generic enough team name to work. You get what I mean? That's what I mean really by that.
Well, it specifically honeybees, but like yeah,
The Utah honeybees.
yeah. I don't know.
I mean, honey. I mean,
Interesting. I don't know.
I think honeybees rolls off the tongue as a sports name. And
Yeah,
the other big thing, I'm just going to throw it out there. No one's called that. No, we don't have a we don't. There's no major team called the
yeah,
honeybees. So I mean, I don't know.
yeah.
You just
Not
call.
exactly. Yeah, not exactly like doesn't instill fear in you, but like yeah,
Have you ever been stung by a bunch of honeybees? Angry? No.
yeah. That
Okay. Honey badgers would be cooler. Anyway, I just we digress into stuff like that.
that trademark will get denied by Teron Matthew.
Yeah, yeah, probably see that as well. Back to this, I wanted to actually point out the fact that my Pittsburgh Penguins are in ninth place. They're reeling. They're 20 and 24, 48. I mean, interestingly enough, I was at opening night for the Penguins this year, where they opened against the Rangers at home. I will say that for me personally, the Rangers have been a little bit of a surprise this year, not being towards the top with just what they have in the roster. I think
Yeah,
there's like genuinely down the stretch here, they've been a bit surprising. That being said, this is about the Penguins, and because I just wanted to say like truly like the dynasty is over. Like this is
yeah,
definitely the old guard, old team. We're just trying to get by. We have the oldest roster in the league. I think still like it's by far the oldest roster in the league. It's cool that Sidney Crosby, F. Kenny Malkin, and Letang are all still together on the team. Chris Letang, but it's it's pointing it to me because I look at 48 points here. They're in ninth place in the East, and you know who respectfully is in ninth place in the West? The Chicago Blackhawks. So I kind of, and the reason that's significant is because I have been joking with people that the Penguins are on a trajectory sort of like the Blackhawks in the last like 5 years. Like you can tell we are on the
yeah.
way down, and I'm fine with that. You know what I mean? I'm not fine with it as a fan goes, but we were on top for so long, and when you look at who's you got some teams that are still above there that have had up and down success, but I look at things like the Capitals. It's like, listen, we've had some changes in GMs. We, as in the Penguins, have had changes in GMs and things along those lines. Like for the most part, it's just the ebbs and flows of the league going up and down. And younger teams are coming through. And it's time for the Penguins to hopefully get younger. And I think right now the only thing that I'm a little worried about is I don't like want that what I call the Pittsburgh nostalgia. I don't want that to win out here because I think the city's sports teams, especially the Steelers, have been guilty of the past of like, hey, let's just don't get me wrong. I wouldn't want like Sidney Crosby to play for any of the team. I wouldn't want any of the core guys to either. But at some point, it's sort of like, okay, like we kind of need you guys to retire. like, like, I still think that Sid has enough good years in him and everything, but it's sort of like between the lack of goaltending play and the lack of good defense, it's like, okay, yeah, but we need to get younger, and no one man is more important than the unit. So
Yeah.
it's look for the Penguins to be making some moves around the deadline. I don't know what significant it is, but for me, it's sort of like, yeah, like there's people that I would never want to see leave our team, and then there's yeah, but we got to do something to get better, like because unlike the Steelers, the Penguins are going to be in a position here, most likely to be towards top draft pick, And
Yeah, it would
it's a
be it
weird,
would be
yeah.
very interesting if the uh the league rigs it to give him the first pick.
I'm
Um,
saying,
mhm.
just because the Penguins are an organization that the NHL wants to stay good. And when people are like, "Oh yeah, they rigged it to give you Mario Lemieux," and I'm like, "Yeah, well the Penguins were never good before." And then everyone's like, "Oh, well they rigged it to give us Sidney Crosby." I'm like, that's one of those things where if like CIA document was put in front of me that proves that like that was the case, I'd be sitting here saying, "I don't care. We got Sidney Crosby." You think I care? Like, see, the league really did rig it. I don't care. Are you kidding me? Like, good. I hope they rig it again because we're a cool franchise and the NHL is better when the Penguins are good. Okay. End of rant. Did I just say that on the
Yeah.
show? Yes, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah,
Are
fair,
you kidding
fair,
me?
fair,
Yes.
valid,
It would be
valid.
great if we won the lottery and got the next best thing again. It would be the same thing. Crosby, he could live at Crosby's house. It'd be the same thing as Lemieux moved to him. Be amazing. So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah,
Any other thoughts about?
yeah,
Yeah,
it's like poetry. It rhymes.
it is. It's like
Yeah,
history. It rhymes. History doesn't repeat itself, but history rhymes. Haha.
yeah, yeah. So who do you think are sleepers here in the NHL who could make a bit of a surprise here playoff push?
Well, it's interesting because I think not to herald another podcast, but I think the Spit and Chicklets guys are usually kind of like big on the terms of like the middle of the East. I'm always, to be honest, I mean, right now, I guess my sleeper would be Columbus, just because like I think cohesively they've got something to play for. Don't count the Bruins or Lightning out towards the top of the wild card there. In actual fact, I think that it's very, very. I think the top of that like last two spots in on the wild card is going to be
Hmm.
very fought for. The Red Wings, I could also see doing it, but right now I'm leaning towards that. The top three of that wild card, I think, is solid because I don't see anyone. I don't see anyone below the Red Wings trending any positive direction. I'm sorry to say.
No, yeah, I mean, look, that's the thing that's crazy about that is
Hmm.
from the first wild card down to just above the Penguins, with the Islanders, it's 5 points
Yeah.
difference. So that jockeying back and forth for those two wild card spots is going to go, you know, crazy for the next couple months.
I also think that just based on the point distribution and just some of the stat leaders, this could be a year where the wild card leader, the wild card leader in the West, I think has a chance to really whoever that ends up being. Right now, it happens to be that Colorado Avalanche the night we're recording, but I think that to me, I just think sleepers here recently have done better in the West, just because I don't know. I think the playoffs start and the separation between the teams is just made that much less. And I think I've always thought that there's just more separation between the top of the East and the bottom of the East versus the West. So I
Yeah,
don't see
no,
that
yeah.
changing this year. Is all I mean.
Yeah, I mean, if I look at just sort of the uh if I look at goal differential, for example,
Exactly.
weirdly enough, Boston, who's in that first wild card spot, has a negative 25 goal differential.
Yeah.
That is crazy to me.
Yeah. It is crazy.
The only other lower goal differential is Pittsburgh in the East. That is crazy to me.
That sounds right. But
Yeah,
when I
in
go
fact,
ahead.
that's like I think maybe the fifth lowest in the whole league. I have no idea. I'm not aware enough of the Bruins season to know why that's even a thing, but that is insane to me.
Well, what it means is that typically what that means generally is that they're winning with defense. They're not scoring many goals, but they're winning when they are winning. They're winning like 1-2 nothing games. Is kind of what that tells me in my brain. I am curious here because going back to the
Well,
Avalanche, your points leader is still Nathan MacKinnon. Number two is still Leon Draisaitl. Uh, it's weird, man. Anytime I see Mitch Mariner's number four, Marner, excuse me, is number four. Anytime I see the Leafs towards the top of a list, I'm just like, oh boy. The Toronto Maple Leafs, man. If they were ever able to get it together in the playoffs fully, um, I think it's been estimated, and don't hold me to this, it's been estimated that if the Toronto Maple Leafs ever made it to the Stanley Cup final, if that ever happened, again in the modern day, I should say, if they did today, that technically because of like inflation, at least this was the case like 5 years ago, that would be the most expensive. A home ticket to that in the arena there would be
Hmm.
the most expensive ticket like in the history of North American sports or something. Um, I don't know if that's still true because it's kind of hard to actually measure that in terms of country to country. Like, how does that translate to Canadian dollars versus others? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
You
because
have the
what,
conversion rate. Yeah.
like the conversion rate, whatever it was when I first heard that, but like apparently that still is like high on the list of like,
I think it's just theorizing, but that also just generally kind of makes sense.
it
But
does, it does.
also, I think I've officially altered my opinion on this. I really want the Maple Leafs to make it and then get swept. That would be that would be almost better than them never making it back there. It'd be them making it there and then just getting bounced immediately.
I think that's the only thing that would cause like another. I mean, do you remember when the Vancouver Canucks and Boston Bruins played in the final? The Bruins won, and then the Vancouver Canuck like fans like rioted, like
Look,
the burning.
yeah,
Yeah, like that.
yeah.
It's
Look,
like very un-Canadian. I don't know.
the amount of chaos and damage that would happen to the nation, we would be able to acquire Canada as a state for $10 in a box of Cheez-Its. So yeah, yeah. I
Wow, what a time to be alive. Anyway, that's all I got. You got anything else left on the NHL? Again, we'll probably revisit it when we get closer to their trade deadline, which I believe is March 7th.
yeah, I mean, like I said, I uh go Knights and Connor McDavid's overrated. And that's what I got.
Connor McDavid is not overrated, but go Pens. Uh,
Connor McDavid is the second best player on his team.
okay. Well, no, he's not. But we are going to who behind Drysaitel?
Yeah,
Okay. All right. Well,
yeah.
statistically, that's true right now. So, but overall, no, that's not the case. Anyway, let's transit. Get no, leave it. We're not
No.
doing that. We'll revisit that at another time. You know, you have a grudge against them, so they're in your division. So let's transition. Let's transition. We're gonna get into what was gonna be the cover sake of the show, I should
Yeah,
say. Let's jump back into the coaching carousel conversation before we get into the championship games as we close out the show
yeah.
here. So go ahead, go ahead. You can kind of.
Yeah, so just to sort of recap and
Mhm.
mention some things that happened since we last talked. Uh Everybody but the Saints has their guy. The Dallas Cowboys, as what was sort of what was sort of expected, they just settled on their internal candidate, offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer. Um, he's just taken over to be the puppet of Jerry Jones. Um, Look, good luck, good luck, but
Listen,
I
yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
it's for me. It's not there. I don't think it would ever be there, but I'm beginning to feel sorry for Cowboys fans, like actual like diehard Cowboys fans, just because there is no gas in that franchise at all. Like you have pieces that could win, but you never have consistent roster management that's good. You never have consistent coaching that's good. It's just there's no excitement about that team in that team. I mean, even the whole press conference that Jerry was giving, it sounded like he gave the press conference with the expectation that he had to defend the hire. Like the whole thing was him basically coming out ahead of it knowing the media would be like, "Why did you hire this guy?"
Well, right, and it was, and I don't really know what to say other than it's clearly Jerry Jones's way of trying to defend someone who he sees as kind of loyal to him and everything. We've talked before on the show, and there's really nothing more we can add to the conversation of what is known about Jerry Jones, right? That if the
Mhm.
Cowboys ever have any success, it has to be because of him. Has to be. That's just a compulsive need of his. That being said, yeah, I'm kind of there with you. It's sort of like I don't have any really even dislike for the Cowboys. If anything, yeah, I see their fans as kind of more victim to victim to fanhood, I guess as you can say. Not the best ownership. I mean, I know a thing or two about that in terms of my own fandom, but I'm with you. And it kind of it's a little bit something that I think has kind of gotten lost in the fray is I don't think it comes off when you talk about this story that everyone's dogging on Brian Schottenheimer. I don't. I just think that like, hey, you're not quite ready for this. Like, I think that's like you're not being put in the best position to probably have some success. And the whole press conference was also really weird. I think you would agree. It
Yeah.
was a really strange just endeavor as it was going to be, but it's almost sort of like, okay, the Cowboys are in a lot of ways now scraping the bottom of the barrel, and it's sort of like, how is Jerry Jones going to try to explain his way out of it? Just to adding to your point of having to defend it, and yeah, I genuinely kind of if it doesn't go well, I don't blame Brian Schottenheimer. That's all I'm going to say. I don't. I mean, I would
Yeah.
blame him for something that was directly his decision making, but I just don't think he's set up for success here. You know what I mean? I
No,
uh
yeah. I mean, look, Brian Schottenheimer, I think he's definitely prepared. I remember floating his name around for head, like his name was being floated around, and I was predicting him to go certain places, back when he was a coordinator for Seattle.
yeah.
But he ended up getting fired because like the Seattle offense was bad at the time, and he just couldn't kind of like around, and then he ended up or he ended up with the Cowboys. But he's been around forever. Like he was a coordinator. His first offensive coordinator job was in 2006 for the Jets.
Mm-hmm.
It was 19 years ago was his first coordinator job. And he was a coordinator with the Rams, with Georgia, weirdly enough. And so he's been around. Obviously, the son of Marty Schottenheimer, who's was a very good coach
Yep.
for a long time. Uh, so he's got the stuff, and he could be good. I hope he is. I hope for his sake he's good. It's just
Me too.
the vibes in that building are not something I would willingly want to be a part of. Is all
No,
I'm saying.
no, and it's clear that plenty of other people were like, you know what, Mike McCarthy included. You know what, I'm good. I think I tried to make this work. It boggles my mind how like even the way the Cowboys are currently structured. If Jerry Jones made a couple of decisions, they'd be so
Yeah.
much better. If
Yeah.
he just hired a real GM, let that guy do his thing, I think the Cowboys would have been contenders at least a couple of times in the last like 5, 6, 7 years. If in the NFC, I mean,
Yeah.
come on. I mean, the nucleus has been there.
That's a
They've
that's
got
a
good
very
players.
that's a very winnable division
Yes,
in
I
in
mean,
in a in a weaker conference compared to the AFC.
it's still an attractive franchise. Like literally, if 5 years ago Jerry Jones would have said, you know what, I'll just be the owner. You go ahead and be the GM. You can even have a little bit of say when it comes to personnel, as all owners do. But if you just let a GM actually cook, oh my goodness. Like I absolutely been sitting there thinking, oh, I can just make the roster decisions I want with the coach I want. Even Mike McCarthy, it could have worked. I mean, I don't know. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, man, like I just feel like we're gonna look back on this era of the Cowboys. I don't know in how long, and just think, wow, so many like great players' careers were a little wasted there. You know,
Hmm.
for for what? For someone who just didn't want to give up any control at all. You know,
Yeah.
so
And with that, uh Brian Schottenheimer has hired Matt Eberflus as his DC. So
Hey,
former head coach. It's you would think it's a benefit to have coordinators with head coaching experience. That especially for a first time head coach to sort of know and get some tips on potential pitfalls to avoid, things like that. So
yeah,
we'll
and
see.
it's interesting when you hear coordinators. Usually, coordinators after they've been head coaches, especially if they've been fired, kind of just hide. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But if you actually get a chance to hear some of them talk, it's interesting to hear the wisdom you pick up. Right? Forgive me if I'm wrong, Casen. Did we talk about Pete Carroll taking over the Raiders last
I
week?
don't know if we did, but I don't think we did. If we didn't, uh, in a move to me that was absolutely bizarre,
I don't think we did either. Go
I
ahead. Yep.
like the Las Vegas Raiders hired what 73-year-old Pete Carroll. Uh, okay, okay. I
This.
mean,
Go
look,
ahead. Go ahead.
look. He mutually parted ways with Seattle. He's a good coach. Everybody knows that. Everybody agrees with that. He's probably a guy you want to get in the building to fix your culture problems. I
Yeah.
don't doubt that. It's just my thing with this is you have a high draft pick. You're trying to get some franchise guys. Maybe you want to trade up to get Shadur. And that's a moment you want to get like a stopgap, temporary fix band-aid head coach that you know is only going to be there for like 3 years
Yeah.
at the most. Like it's to me, it's just a weird idea. Like I don't know, like because he was like some kind of advisor for the Seahawks still after he stepped down as coach. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know because it sounded like he wanted to get back into coaching and
I am 100% convinced, and this you don't have to be a genius to figure this out because there was rumblings about it. I am 100% convinced that if had Bill Belichick been available, he would be the head coach of the Raiders right now. No question.
but he
I have.
is.
Well, he's not though. Like, had he not been hired,
I mean he is.
he's
Like he
not.
is.
He's not though. Like he may had he if he had no prospects and hadn't already said he's going to go to North Carolina, hadn't already had the whole fanfare happen. I think that's
Is that
absolutely.
But like, is that any different? Like, he's still in his 70s.
No, that's
Like,
what I
it's the
mean.
same thing.
Right. That's what I mean. What my point is that if they were going to be comfortable hiring Pete Carroll, they were absolutely going to do that first. And with Brady making some decisions, he probably would have. His former coach Belichick would probably have gotten that job.
Sure, sure,
Um,
sure.
for the same reasons. I mean, the stopgap, all that stuff, mind you, whatever. For me, when I saw that, it gave me I don't know, probably not the fairest comparison, but Tony La Russa being hired by the
The
White
White
Sox,
Sox. Yeah, yeah,
that it gave me similar vibes.
yeah,
The only
yeah.
th- the only the best like comparison I could make is if Pete Carroll was out of it like truly for 5, 6, 7 years. Like or whatever it was, something like
Yeah,
5 years before they're like, you know what? Yeah, let's bring Pete Carroll back in. It's like, what are we doing? Like what? Like, are you, you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
But no, I mean Pete Carroll,
To me, that was North Carolina hiring Mac Brown. That's what that felt like to me.
yeah,
It was like,
that's a better
what?
comparison. Yeah.
Like what?
So I don't know. I kind of look at I don't know. Are the Raiders the more things
I,
change with these owners as they're passed from family to family from all that, like things stay the same. And there you go. I just think that that's another situation where, hey, I hope it works out for him. Pete Carroll, good luck. They're the Raiders.
and once again, we're gonna have Pete Carroll versus Jim Harbaugh.
We are. We are.
They cannot avoid each other.
The beef
It,
continues. Do you want to talk about Liam Cohn?
yeah,
We got to talk about that.
yeah. So we talked about it. We talked a little about a little bit about the Jags
We did.
last week to where Liam Cohen backed out of the job because of Trent Baalke and then they fired Trent Baalke. What happened after we recorded was basically immediately after the Jags fired Trent Baalke, they circled back with Liam Cohen and was like, "Hey, we just fired the guy you didn't want to work with. Do you want to come now and we'll
Please,
just let you pick the GM?"
yeah,
And he
please come
goes,
over.
Yeah, and he's like, actually, sure, yeah, sure,
Yeah,
yeah,
why
we'll
not?
we'll make you like the highest paid head coach or something. Yeah, I don't know. They gave him a bunch of money, and the just the fun part of the story is that like he agreed to an extension with the Bucks as their OC on Monday,
You did.
and then after they fired Trent Baalke, he like immediately got on a plane to go to Jacksonville, and like and after the Bucks knowing this like was a material change in the situation, and he hadn't signed the contract yet. So the Bucks were calling him. He wasn't answering. They were calling his agent. No answer with his agent. And then he was like, and then he just was texting the head coach, and he was like, "Hey, I'm dealing with some personal stuff. Some personal stuff."
Yeah, and it's
And
like,
so,
okay, so he's going to be the head coach somewhere else.
yeah, apparently the whole reason there was some like lying about this was because the offer that they made to him with the extension was contingent upon him not doing another interview with the Jags.
Uh,
And so if the Buccaneers found out that he was in Jacksonville, they would have, well, they could have rescinded his contract offer, but not like they would have. I
yeah,
mean, I don't know. Like maybe they would have said, "Well, we're not giving you this raise or whatever," but
right.
whatever. Um, so yeah, but he ended up getting the Jags job, so he went. He had a press conference. Duval.
Yeah. The Duval was quite cringeworthy, I will say.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Um, he seems like a nice guy, but he also seems like a massive nerd. Whatever. I mean, it is what it is. I look, I will say I have been pounding the table for Liam Cohen for years. Because he was great at Kentucky, he was great at the Rams. He's done a lot for Baker Mayfield. He's
yeah.
made Baker Mayfield look the best he's ever looked in his career. So
So
I
keep
think
your eyes on that, by the way, now that he's
if
not
there's
there.
yeah, if there's any, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
If there's anybody that can fix Trevor, if there's a fixing needing to be done, make him make him reach his potential, it's him. And so yeah, I've been saying he needed a head coaching job for the last couple of years, and I'm happy for him. He finally got one because he's been circling sort of the next
Calling
guy up for a while.
calling him a nerd would be like calling Mike McDaniel, head coach of the Dolphins, a nerd. I
Mm,
mean, and that's generally so far anyway worked out.
yeah, yeah.
So hey, really hope it works out. I hope it's all good. Kasen, you saying that and me saying that about Baker Mayfield and everything made me think about like say when Brian Dable left the Bills. Uh,
Hmm.
and yeah, and just to kind of see what's unfolded since then. Um, are we done talking about the carousel? You want to get into this?
Uh, yeah. I mean, the only thing I'll say is Robert Saleh, San Francisco is the new San Francisco DC again.
He is.
Um, so good. That's a good fit for him. He goes right back to where it was. He'll probably be there for a year and then get a new head coaching job at somewhere better. Um,
Yeah.
and the only opening left is the Saints, which it seems like that's open because they know they're hiring Kellen Moore, would be my best guess.
Yeah.
Mike McCarthy pulled out and he's not looking for a job anymore. And so to me, the only candidate that would be left would be Kellen Moore. So
Which I
which
genuinely
okay.
yeah, which that would be interesting. I mean, the only yeah, it's someone having to do with someone of the teams that are left, right? When there's
Yeah.
one vacancy left, it's sort of like okay, we're waiting for the actual season to end. So more on that in another couple weeks. Quite frankly, I hope Kellen Moore gets that job because there would be an NFL head coach with my first name, even though I'm pretty sure Kellen Moore spells it wrong, as I
I believe
jokingly
so. Yeah, I believe so.
wrong in terms of how I spell it correctly. A-N. He's an E-N. Anyway, um, speaking of that, the means by which that needs to unfold before he can take that job. The championship games took
Yeah.
place this past weekend. Let's talk about the NFC first. Honestly, this. oh, listen, as much as we glazed up the Commanders, I'm not even gonna lie when I say that. Like, I think I texted you after the second touchdown by Saquon, I'm like, all right, so this game's over, right? It just kind of felt like, oh wow, foot on the gas. The Eagles are just gonna boat race this. And that's kind
Yeah.
of what happened, really.
Yeah. 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 An absolute just annihilation.
It was.
Um, which not like it was really, it wasn't Jaden's fault. I mean, the offense was still pretty good. I think they still scored 30 something, right? Or they were 28
They
maybe.
scored 23, and they didn't score any in the fourth quarter. And to be fair, the Eagles like last three touchdowns all came in the fourth quarter, if you recall.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So
it made it
it,
look worse than it was, really,
yeah.
during the game.
So yeah, the offense wasn't exactly the problem. It was, yeah, it was the defense, which was thin and suspect most of the year anyway.
Yeah.
It showed back up. So yeah, this is kind of what we all thought would happen. I mean, you upset the better team in the divisional round, and then you have to play a team that actually is better than you by a lot.
It really does make
Um,
me wonder what would have happened if the Lions had been totally healthy and
yeah,
would have and would have won that
yeah,
game and would have welcomed the Eagles in. I mean, I think that could have been a real I think we could have gotten a really, really good NFC championship game too.
yeah,
Made me think
yeah, for
about that. I
sure.
was like, well, it would have been kind of cool to see this Lions team fully strength against that Eagles team, but didn't happen. Hey, it is what it is. I will say Jaden Daniels hopefully will be back. I still think they're probably the story of the year, just with the run they were able to make down the stretch. I gotta say, man, it is. I have some friends in my circle who one of which was at Penn State the same time Saquon Barkley was. And it is cool to see his arc, the way he's, handled his career, gone about things, the way that in a lot of ways he's kind of been able to stick it to the Giants. I
Hmm.
would sit here and say deservedly, honestly,
Yeah.
by the Giants. And for it to have worked out this well, to where regardless of what happens in the actual Super Bowl, Saquon has made it there the year after he leaves, a place that he genuinely wanted to have success at. It's just interest. It's just I feel good for him in a very base sense. Any thoughts on that?
No, I mean 100%. I mean, I think uh everybody loves trolling the Giants over the stuff that came out with the videos from their Hard Knocks.
Right.
Um, basically just telling, saying, oh, Saquon, whatever. I mean, yeah,
Right.
it just all-time bad visual from the Giants for that being on camera. And it never felt like they did him right because it always felt like because he was injured a lot in New York,
He was.
and I do kind of vaguely remember a lot of discourse around how that was handled and like how the Giants were handling him. And so it's always good when you see somebody like that go to an actual real franchise that can actually take care of you.
Greener pastures, if you will.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
in the Eagles' case, literally greener colors. Haha.
yeah.
Uh, I mean, honestly, about the game itself, I don't really have much else to say other than the better team won. The Eagles were one of the top two teams in the NFC all year. Like I said,
Yeah.
it's more disappointing that we didn't get the Lions Eagles matchup.
Yeah.
That was primarily what I was really thinking. Not that the Commanders didn't deserve to be there. I mean, I think we do both need to own it that we picked Chiefs Commanders to be the Super Bowl. Uh, it's clear to me we weren't gassing the Eagles up enough.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I
I think we
definitely feel
oversold the
like
Commanders.
well, I will say it's kind of felt like the Eagles sort of skated by all year, despite being, one of the best teams in the league. Like they won 14 games, second most, third most in the league. And like it felt like they were never the story. The story was the Lions and the Vikings. It was never them.
Yeah.
Um, I think probably mostly because of just what happened, the year
The year
before.
previous last year,
Yeah, yeah,
crash
and
and
it's just
burn.
kind of. I think everybody just expected it to be like a fraudulent 14 win team. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know for sure how that uh how that hypothetical NFC Championship game would have worked. Just because I'm trying to get this pulled up because I'm trying to see something. There we go. So because I don't I mean we saw tons of issues with the Lions defense all year.
Right.
And I mean if you want to talk about like let me get that. There we go. The yeah, the Lions had a lot of issues with their defense, and I don't think that I would have trusted them to be able to stop Saquon. I mean,
No,
I,
I'm
I
just I'm simply saying it probably would have been a better game, and it also would have been in Detroit.
yeah,
So who's to say so?
yeah, yeah, that is true. That is true.
But I think what you're getting at, though, that I'll agree with you is you're right. I think even in that hypothetical matchup, we weren't giving the Eagles their due
Yeah.
of how much they were able to turn it on. And to be honest, that's kind of what that whole fourth quarter felt like for me. Like, okay, we can go ahead and score, keep scoring touchdowns. Let's go ahead and actually bury them. Um, I don't know. Just the fourth quarter of the NFC Championship game this year felt like when you see a college team trying to make a statement and like bolster their resume. It
Mhm.
felt like that. Like let's not just beat our divisional opponent in this game, but let's like humiliate them a little bit. Let's rub their nose in it. Let's keep scoring because they weren't doing it. They were just running the ball. But it's like if they can't stop us, we're just gonna keep scoring. You know. So I'm not accusing the
I-
Eagles of running the score up, but I do think it
yeah,
felt like let's actually put some separation and put some respect on our names going into this Super Bowl, which
yeah,
for me it felt from really the beginning of the second quarter on like the Eagles were going.
yeah. I mean, and it wasn't even particularly um the totally like completely on just them not being able to stop Saquon. I mean, it the game was honestly like relatively even, except for the fumbles that just kind of I think blew the doors open in the game. Um,
Sure,
the yeah, so
but I still
the
think that the Eagles would have dominated.
I think they would have won definitely, but I mean it just got to a point to where there wasn't anything they could do. I mean the Commanders had more passing yards. But yeah, they got absolutely killed on the rushing stats. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean they couldn't run, and then they were getting run on. So, but
All right. So I like how we've positioned this show because I have been waiting for the next game for since it ended, quite frankly. I think it's time to transition to the AFC Championship game because this was the more headline generating story of the weekend. I mean, let's just be real. It was all kind of
Mhm.
leading to this. And in a lot of ways, it felt like the NFL season was leading to this because at the end of the day, I think everyone knew in some way, shape, or form, in some round of the playoffs, it was going to be Chiefs Bills again. It was going to be Mahomes and Allen again, dueling, all of that. And well, Casen, what happened? What happened in the game?
Well, what happened was we all learned, or the rest of America learned what I was trying to tell you all 2 years ago, and that is not only is the Bills window closed, it is locked shut. Locked. It is sealed. It is concreted over. They are done. They are kaput. I you you're done. They are cooked. They are cooked.
They're
Unless
they're cooked.
the only thing they can do to fix this is to just move on from Sean McDermott. I mean that's the only thing to do. I'm not saying
Mm,
he's a bad coach.
no,
It's just sometimes you run into the situation to where it's just like you can't do it anymore. Like it's sort of the Ryan Day thing to where it's like at some point, like you either have to do it or you have to just move on. And so
Y-
you're just running into this thing where it's like at this point he's at two in his head, and there were multiple times in that game to where Sean McDermott made the wrong call and cost them that game,
I would agree. I would
and
agree.
he was doing stupid stuff that just didn't make sense. Like losing a timeout because you had to challenge something that didn't even matter was so dumb to me. Like I get some people trying to argue the thought behind it, but like to me in that situation, a timeout is more important
Yeah.
than that.
Yeah. Um, and let me quickly respond and say that obviously the Chiefs won 32-29. That was the outcome. I wanted to just kind of recircle into something here. It has been my belief, as much as I've joked about it, it has been my belief that I don't necessarily think that the Bills' window's closed because, in a very basic sense, as long as you have Josh Allen, your window's not going to be closed, right? In a very basic sense. That is how I feel about this. That being said, this really did feel like the best Bills team to poised to beat the Chiefs in the playoffs that they've had so far. They're playing well. They literally beat them during the regular season in Buffalo and hand the Chiefs one of their only two losses, but arguably their only legit loss of the year because
Yeah,
they
yeah.
played like the last one was the last week of the year, played all their backups. So
Mhm.
like yeah, it was kind of one of those. If it doesn't happen this year, is it ever going to happen? And what was weird, Kason, is from the first two series, I could almost tell the Chiefs were going to win. You know, like it was
They came back and like made it interesting, but
correct.
oof, that was a rough start.
Like
I mean,
even the
we were
beginning of the
texting
game,
immediately. Yeah,
yeah, I
we were
was like,
texting immediately, and Josh was cooked. Like
yeah,
I don't know. He came out beginning of the game rattled.
yeah.
I don't know what happened,
Well,
but
I can tell you what happened. He's lost to this team three times prior to this game, and now four times. If you think he was mentally shot before this game started, wait until next year when they lose to him again, if they're even there. I mean, every time it's like we'll be back. Anytime it says we'll be back, I'm like, yeah, that's assuming you're going to make it back to this point. Plenty don't. I think your longevity is saying something of which
Mhm.
no one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills in that regard, and no one knows a thing or two about that like the Buffalo Bills franchise does. Jokes aside, obviously it ended up a back and forth game. It was in a lot of ways. I mean, I'm skipping around. There's a lot of things we're going to talk about, but I kind of want to talk about this because we're going to talk about the greatness of Patrick Mahomes to kind of close us out. But like this show not having like a real vendetta against the Bills per se, but just Casen's take continuing to be correct for what 4 years now, 4 straight years, and four not four straight, right? 4 years total because in the middle of that was Rams Bengals, right? Like in the
Yeah.
very middle of that whole thing, we got that Rams Bengals random Super Bowl. But beyond that, the legacy of this is one quarterback losing to the other one. And it's not a rivalry, by the way. It's a relationship. A rivalry implies that the other one has won. The other one has not won yet. But what I'm getting to, Kason, is that the game, in a lot of ways, the legacy of Josh Allen, at least up to this point, was on a silver platter. I had multiple people text me, okay, legacy drive upcoming. Drive to literally win the game. A score wins the game. Literally, I mean, I believe field goal. Yeah, field goal would have tied the game.
Mhm.
But literally, I'm like, okay, I've seen you go down the field against this Chiefs offense. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, this is the drive. McDermott, Allen, all of you guys, Cook, make it happen. And I was sitting here thinking, okay, this is it. And for it to like immediately not work, I was just sitting there kind of like, all right, so that was the if that was the legacy, that was the legacy. They spin their wheels.
Well, I mean, you're sitting there, and you're like, and you're hearing, uh, Tony Romo and whatever they be like, all right, Steve Spagnuolo, what is he gonna dial up to rush Josh Allen,
Yeah.
and then Josh Allen drops back 7 steps like he's gonna throw a nuclear bomb, and then he gets immediately killed, and you're
Uh
like, everybody in the building knew that this was gonna be a blitz,
yeah.
like.
And I will say, and going back to what you were saying about McDermott,
Mhm.
legitimately, why don't you just run Josh Allen straight at Chris Jones a fifth time? Let's see if it works. You know what I mean? Like that's my thinking when it comes to like the non first down and the fact that you couldn't see the ball and everything.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people sitting here thinking to myself, I'm sorry, but when you're running, when everyone knows that it's going to be Josh Allen straight up the middle, eventually the tush push is not going to work. and you're leaving it up to chance. And it's one of those
It's
things where
also it's
it's
also
just
like
not good coaching. It's not good play calling. You have that offense, and you're just going to run Josh Allen up the middle. Eventually, it's not going to work, guys.
it's also like why do we care? Like don't let the game come down to that
Right,
call.
right. I agree.
Like the number of other mistakes that you made during that game that would have allowed you to be up by more or like don't let if you're trying to beat a team like the Chiefs, don't allow yourself to be in the position to where you can lose the game because of that. Like, come on.
Also that play did not end the game. I have a
No,
huge,
no,
I have a
they had the ball
huge
after that.
right. Like
Yeah.
they still had the drive. They still had the drive to win the game. They had an opportunity that gave themselves to win the game, and they didn't do it. That's my thing. I was like, I'm sorry. I have a hard time having sympathy for any teams that okay that didn't end the game though. Like there were other things that happened that you could have won this. So that's where I sit.
You
Good.
had plenty of opportunity to stop them and force a punt
Right.
to get the ball back again.
I don't know how long this continues where the Bills and I mean the Chiefs seemingly are going to be at this caliber for as long as Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are there, right? I don't know if the same thing continues with the Bills. I mean, again, I would imagine we're still going to have this. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, eventually the Chiefs are not going to beat them, right? Um, go ahead. Go ahead.
I will reiterate what I sent you was which was a TikTok from Kansas City superfan Nick Wright. This is the curse that the Bills inflicted upon themselves.
They actually did. Yep.
They the Buffalo Bills were sitting there at pick 10 in the 2017 NFL draft and traded the pick to Kansas City, and Kansas City drafted Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
And he is now forever the Bills killer. Like that's just what he is. And not only that,
Yeah. The second one.
the Buffalo Bills were sitting at what was it, pick 28
Yeah.
in the draft last year. And they traded that pick to Kansas City and they drafted Xavier Worthy.
I cannot.
Who,
That one I really can't
by the
believe.
way,
Yeah.
Xavier let's just go over Xavier Worthy's day on Sunday. He had 6 receptions for 85 yards and a touchdown, and he carried it twice for 16 yards. So he was easily the best offensive player during that game, and he just got gifted to them by the team they were playing.
Yeah.
Like
If you're
when they
Xavier
could
Worthy, they literally, get rid of Tyreek Hill
you
and you put them in a position to replace him arguably with someone who could be better than him. Like,
you know who
what
could
are you
use
doing?
Xavier Worthy on their team right now? The Buffalo Bills.
Bills. Yeah.
When your best receiver is Khalil Shakur, like
Yeah.
with
I mean,
come on, like what are we doing?
this is the tangible reason of what we're talking about when decisions like that are made on draft night that just look boneheaded in hindsight. It's just like, what are you doing? Like, are like, and it's one thing to be said that oh, we're making decisions for the long term health of our franchise. That's fine if you're not the Bills and you have a window that at least I anyway on this show think is still open. I'm sorry, you need to be doing literally everything to maximize what you've got right now with Josh Allen. Everything that dude wants to give yourself a shot to beat this all-time just behemoth that is the Chiefs right now. Go ahead.
Yeah, and just for the record, like I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the Bills ended up trading back to get Keon Coleman, who, okay, I mean, he had 125 yards against the Titans in October, but specifically on Sunday, he had one catch for 12 yards
Yeah.
on Sunday. So it's just like okay, like what like was trading back that much like those few spots really worth giving up the fastest receiver in the draft and who is now arguably the best receiver for the Chiefs? Like,
Yeah.
come on, like
Not named Travis
this
Kelsey.
is the exact same thing that was happening with the Patriots during their dynasty. It
Right.
was like people were just giving them players, and everybody else was like, "Why?
Why are you doing that? Yeah.
Why are you trading with them?"
I'm glad you brought up the Patriots because I did want to shift the conversation to just the legacy of this Chiefs team. Just because, again, as long as we've had this show, this is now potentially their third Super Bowl in a row. Something we genuinely have not seen literally ever before. We've never seen a three-peat in the Super Bowl. And I'm on record saying three-peats just don't happen. There's so many reasons in sports why they just don't happen, which is why when they do, if they do, we talk about all-time greats. You know what I mean?
I
Jordan's
mean,
double three-peat. Go
Co
ahead.
yeah, Kobe and Shaq. Yeah,
Right? Kobe and Shaq. I remember in this show's context, I was talking about it in terms of Georgia Dogs football,
yeah.
Georgia Bulldogs. I was like, especially in college football, there ain't no way you're three-peating in that in college sports. I'm just sorry, there's no way. Um, I say that, and hasn't Oklahoma
Yeah.
softball won like four in a row or something? Anyway,
I mean, yeah,
the sentiment though, but that right there is exactly what I'm talking about. That's when you know something has transcended greatness. It's like it's gone to another level of, okay, it's not just that we were good for this period of time. We had the longevity to keep it this good for this long.
mhm.
And I'm going to go ahead and say on the record here, I don't hate the Chiefs anywhere near as like I'm sure some people do. I get the casual thing of like they've won so much now that like you hate them by proxy because they're always winning. It's like the Warriors effect, right? I will say that no, in my sports fandom life so far, I haven't hated any team in at any level as much as I hated the Patriots at the hot top of their dynasty. However, they directly beat my team to do it, right? There was Spygate, and there was as unlikable as Brady and Belichick were
Mhm.
at their peak, and the fact that the Steelers were one of the teams that apparently they Spygated. You know, like there were so
And
many
then
reasons.
I'm vividly remembering that 2017 game, that like not reception, uh,
Right. They're not, yeah.
dramatic, yeah, end of the game, yeah,
Yeah, it was Steelers Patriots anytime it was put on the schedule, and then yeah, Jesse James makes a catch that they don't call a catch, and just it was all this stuff, and the worst one ever, even worse than Ben's rookie season, was when I watched a 9 straight win Steeler team, probably the best team Ben had in his later years. Amazing offense, all the things the Steelers are not now, not great defense. Go into Foxborough the year where I thought we had the best chance to beat them. They were kind of reeling a bit, and it looked like we had never played the sport of football before. Where like a former lacrosse player, Hogan, the dude caught like
yeah.
300 yards reception, and Brady just completely destroyed the Steelers, and it was like 30 something nothing at halftime, and I was like, at this point, I was just completely defeated. I'm pretty sure that was the year the 28-3 Patriots. I'm pretty sure that was that team.
It
Um,
might have been.
I'm fairly certain it was one of those years, and I'm pretty sure. And so it was sort of like, okay, it felt like Thanos, like I am inevitable. I would imagine I don't feel that way about this Chiefs team at all because I have not been on that receiving end. I would imagine, Casen, there is a whole generation of Buffalo Bills fans right now that feels a lot like that about the Chiefs right now.
Oh, a hundred
You know
percent,
what I mean?
a
And
hundred
I
percent.
and I
Yeah,
totally get it. I years from now when I come across like a Bills fan who's 10 years younger than me and they say the team they hate the most is the Chiefs, I will be like, "Yeah, I get it." For the same reason I still hate the Patriots today, even though they are the basement of the NFL now and hopefully are the rest of my life. From a fan's perspective, I get that. You know what I'm saying? I also would imagine, Kason, that if you're a fan of a team in their division, you probably hate them too. Because it's like,
yeah.
I would hate being in the same division as that. It would be like if the Ravens got that good out of nowhere, Kason. Knock on wood that never happens. But it would be like if that happened. I'm like, yeah, like
Yeah.
it's great now going into the season knowing that we're just going to lose to that team twice and have no chance to, you know. So, yeah, I just wanted to go ahead and say that. Put it out.
Yeah, it was the 2016 season, the AFC Championship. Patriots 36, Steelers 17.
There it is.
Um, it was
Bad
17 to
memories.
9 at halftime,
There it
but then
was.
at the third, it was they scored 16 unanswered points in the third, and so it ended up being uh what would it be, 33 to 9 at one point.
Yep.
And
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it.
so yeah. Well, I'm just saying, yes, it was that season.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I'm with you. I
Yeah.
just thanks. Bad memories, but I get it. You know, and that's what I'm trying to say. So, I think though even Brady and them didn't win 3 straight. You know, saw them win two straight twice, right?
Yeah.
But they couldn't win two. They couldn't win three in a row. So this is going to be fascinating to see if the Chiefs can do that. And part of me is also kind of like, at least they're doing it in a relatively small marketplace like Kansas City. That's the other thing. It's not Boston. It's not a conglomerate of a place that's known for great sports fandom. I mean, never told this story on the show before, and I'll just make it quick. I had a Chiefs fan tell me in the last year, someone who was literally from that part of Missouri, like my entire like it's weird being a Chiefs fan and getting all this success because I feel like my this person was about 5 or 6 years younger than me. His entire um history being a Chiefs fan up to then had been nothing but like pain. You know what I mean? As you text
Hmm.
various people, pain. And so funny enough, like he literally told me, like I was like, okay, who's your favorite Chiefs player of all time? He said Priest Holmes. I'm like, yeah, you're a real one. Like legitimately. Like I'm like, that's pretty cool. Like it just makes me think, man, we're watching something truly amazing, and I just don't want that to be lost on anybody. And if Josh Allen goes titleless, if he goes untitled, so to speak, it'll be like, yeah, it's because he unfortunately was in the NFL the same time as a guy better than him in a
Yeah,
franchise better than them.
yeah.
You
I
know,
mean, yeah, like the Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar stuff. It's all kind of the Brady Manning, Brady Rivers, to some extent Brady Roethlisberger.
is Josh
You know,
Allen Philip Rivers? I've heard plenty of that this week.
I mean, I think Justin Herbert's Philip Rivers, but I mean,
Well, and you know what I mean in terms of
I mean,
sentiment.
all due respect to Philip Rivers, I think that's very offensive to Joe Burrow. Is
Mm, that's a
Are you
good.
saying is Josh Allen Philip Rivers?
What did I say? Did I choose Joe Burrow? I meant Josh Allen.
Is Josh Allen Philip Rivers?
Yes.
No, I mean I would say Josh Allen is Peyton Manning, but
Mm,
I mean just because like Peyton Manning's whole thing was he didn't have the Super Bowl until he got it,
yeah.
and so out of all of those, easily Josh Allen is the best one that doesn't have a Super Bowl and hasn't
Right.
been there.
Right.
So I would say if we're equating it, I would say he's Peyton Manning.
So
Um,
he's not Peyton Manning till he beats him.
yeah, yeah.
Which could happen. Which could
it'll
happen.
happen. Look. I'll sit here and I'll say that the window's closed and locked up, but like it'll happen eventually, probably at some point. But like,
It's
hey,
like eventually you throw yourself
who
against the
knows?
wall. Eventually the wall's going to go down, whether it takes
I
you or
mean,
someone else.
he might be 40, but
Yeah.
he might not be on the Bills, but eventually Josh Allen will get one.
Yeah, that actually is a whole nother question. I'm starting to really think here. I'm like, does Josh Allen just not win a title in Buffalo? Which if you're a Bills fan, I'm sorry to even say, but I mean, it's possible. But now we've had the 8 falls of Buffalo, not
I
four,
look.
the eight.
If I am Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar, I am leaving as soon as my contract is up and going to the NFC. Like
Mm,
I'm going to the the Saints. I'm going that's the thing. That is the problem. Is like if you want to get to a Super Bowl and then just have to play him one time in the Super Bowl, maybe
right.
then switch side. That's just the thing. Is like the AFC
That's
just has this gluttony of quarterbacks, and the NFC is just this like nobody's role.
right. I mean,
Nobody.
that's in terms of, and that's not to disrespect the other NFC quarterbacks, but I'm genuinely sitting here. If I'm Jaden Daniels, I'm like, thank God I'm in the NFC. Like, truly, like, I,
Yeah.
like, thank God my career is starting and I'm over here. Cause man, like, if we can just get this going, we can be the guys, over here. So I'm with you, man. I think you're onto something there. So,
I mean, you know what I
yeah.
would love to see? Like I'm just saying it.
Hmm.
Like I don't know. I, I mean, I think he's still in a contract for like 6 years, but like it would be really fun to see Josh Allen replace Stafford when Stafford retires in Los Angeles. That'd be more so just like it'd be fun to see Josh Allen with McVay. That'd be really interesting to see how that would work.
I agree with you there. I agree. Well, yeah, so that being said, our Super Bowl is set. Our Super Bowl is set. It's going to be a rematch of the Super Bowl 2 years ago when we first had this show, literally, Casen.
Hmm.
It's literally a rematch of that Super Bowl. Then I'm sorry, the Chiefs are going to win it. Like, I'd be sitting here saying to myself, like, yeah, cool. Oh, the matchups, all this, the other. It's going to be the Chiefs winning. I really believe we're going to see the three-peat here.
Look, I will be the first person to say I do have some serious concerns over their defense's ability to slow down Saquon. However,
Sure.
their offense is looking as best as good as it has all season. And so even if it does kind of become a shootout, they'll be able to keep up. And also, much like the whole Josh Allen thing, or the whole Mahomes draft pick thing, the Eagles fired Andy Reid, and that's their curse
Yeah,
to bear.
that is
So,
their curse to bear.
uh, yeah,
And it's just always fascinating because this pops up stat wise, it already has. Andy Reid is the winningest coach in the history of the Eagles and the Chiefs.
yeah, yeah.
That's a stat I love, actually. And they talked about it 2 years ago, and they're talking about it again now. It's like, well, okay, fine. I'll just go ahead and beat the Eagles again. Um, yeah, and I look forward to seeing what Andy Reid's bust in Canton is going to look like because it's going to be awesome.
I don't know how they're gonna get that mustache, but
Oh, it's going
yeah.
to be fantastic, man. Having been to Canton myself, oh, it's going to be great. I can't wait to see what that looks like. But that's what I got, man. You got anything else to add on the Super Bowl?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we're both on the same page with probably inevitability of Chiefs win. Yeah, I'll just sort of follow it up with just the conversation. It's interesting to me that the Chiefs are in this position, just kind of where they are with everybody that they have, because everything about the Chiefs it just kind of seems like this melting pot, big swirl of like second chances, retreads,
Yeah,
like everybody just let them get whatever they wanted because nobody really ever thought they'd do anything,
right.
and then all of a sudden they get Mahomes and it all clicks and it all works. Like you think about Andy Reid fired in Philly, he goes there, he's doing great. Think of like Travis Kelsey, for
Travis,
example. Like
honestly, yeah,
Travis would have been a first round draft pick if he didn't have his off the field stuff in college. That's just a fact. And
yeah.
so it
There's
he gets there, he gets to a coach who actually knows how to use him, and he's the best tight end in the league.
ironically, and I think back to this because we talked about it earlier. That Steelers team I was just talking about, they eliminated the Chiefs in their first playoff game, and
Yeah,
that was the Alex Smith Chiefs. And I remember because Travis Kelsey like said a whole bunch of stuff in the media, I think before and after that game, but about the way it was called or whatever. But the Chiefs went to Kansas City and beat them before this all started, and it just
hmm
kind of felt like there's clearly a great nucleus here in Kansas City. That's why I've often said to people, I'm like, the cake was formed. Patrick was just the icing. It's in a lot of
yeah,
ways. I mean, in reality, he was probably the last like perfect ingredient in the actual cake, right?
right.
Really,
Yeah, is that
everyone else since has been the icing.
they were a very good team, and with Alex Smith at quarterback.
Right,
And then
right.
you put Mahomes back there, and
And it
it's a
was
very
like,
different thing.
and it all just clicks.
Yeah,
There's many great moments in history where that was the case. Like, well, it's like, oh, cake was formed, that he was just the icing. It was like when Durant went to the Warriors, right? It was like, well, okay, the
yeah,
cake's
yeah,
been there. Uh, cake wasn't quite formed, but the last piece, I was like this piece. The Who as a band all
yeah,
existed, and then they got Keith Moon, who was like, I'm much better than the drummer you've got. He went back
yeah.
there, and Roger Daltrey always said it was like a jet engine took off behind me, and then everything worked. I was like, yeah, it was one of those moments in history that people will write about someday.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
don't know. I saw somebody just say that like the Chiefs have drafted one quarterback in 40 years, and it's Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, yeah, there's something. Yeah, wow, it really is crazy. So you've got that. I guess my last question to end this out on, because I'm just curious. Does Travis Kelsey retire if they win three in a row? That's a real
I don't
question.
know. I don't know. I
Are
think
we
he
sitting here
should.
talking about another Kelsey brother retiring 2 weeks from now?
I My thing is I think he should because like I don't like he's clearly like he's not putting up the numbers he was. He's contributing in other ways. Like he's been blocking a lot more and he's a very effective blocker now. So they're using him like not so much in the passing game as much anymore. But to me I don't know why you would come back because at this point, it's like you wouldn't contribute to winning. Like if you don't come back and they lose, it's not like you could have stopped that from happening. Like, you know what I mean? Like the role Travis is playing now, it is easily filled by Noah Gray,
Yeah.
um, and Ben Watson. I think his
I
name
I even
Watson.
had a thought like
He's
someone said
Watson
along the
Mayhew.
lines of if Travis were to retire, would that be kind of like would that mark the beginning of a transitional period for the Chiefs? I'm like, no, because he hasn't really done anything to help this one.
Yeah,
Like,
I
no,
mean
they'll be fine. What do you mean?
he usually has like one or two moments,
Yeah,
but like it's not. But like they'll be able to replace that. So to me, in my head, he should
yeah,
just because coming back isn't going to. I don't know. I mean, it's just like best case scenario. What you win a fourth in a row? Like I don't
they're
like. There's
gonna
no way, right? Like
they're
I don't
going
know. I
to. I
mean,
got a wild prediction, and it's not a real one. I'm just going with it. It's a bit. They're going to win on some crazy Statue of Liberty play in overtime. Travis is going to make the play. He's going to sprint like literally somehow, some way up to the box and propose to Taylor. There, I called my shot. Some way,
yeah.
somehow,
Okay.
or she's
Okay.
somehow going to be positioned on the field
Okay.
just like the Boise State cheerleader was, like whatever
Okay.
that was 20 years ago.
Yeah, sure, sure,
Yeah, you're saying
sure. No,
sure, sure. Hey, something
the
crazy could
the
happen.
the the larger point I was trying to say was Travis is a guy to me that wants to end his career winning a Super Bowl.
I
Like
agree.
I think he saw how Jason went out last year,
Yeah,
and I know that killed Jason. Like going out on that playoff loss
yeah,
was just brutal. And he almost came back because of that.
yeah,
And so I think to
yeah,
me, winning a three-peat, go out on your own terms. Just like what is there left to do? Like you got a three-peat, like a go you're gonna go into the hall the year after your brother. Like
yeah. I mean, that's the
I
other thing
mean,
too.
and now like you can actually have some time off. Like spend some time with your lady. It's like
Yeah,
this is what you've been waiting for at this point.
it is.
Like
I will say the only real individual that I am rooting for in the Super Bowl. You ready for this? One King Kendrick Lamar.
yeah, yeah,
That halftime show, though,
yeah.
I am like beyond the roof excited. Like, I'm more excited for that probably than anything with the Super Bowl. Like,
I
I can't believe
yeah,
Kendrick Lamar is the headlining
yeah.
actual artist in the Super Bowl. What a
I
year the man has had.
do you
Amazing.
know who is absolutely not rooting for Kendrick Lamar?
Drake
Yes, Drake. Drake.
has to be. I mean, come on. It has to be.
Drake is hoping that we get
Oh,
that we get an incident like the Niners Ravens Super Bowl where the power just goes
yeah,
out
yeah, where the
right
power
before the
goes
halftime
out,
show.
or the still in my opinion greatest Super Bowl halftime show of all time, Prince, where they were really worried that the pouring down rain was going to cause all the electric to go out, and
Yeah,
instead it just made it look visually incredible because he did Purple
yeah.
Rain and the pouring down rain in Miami, like how that like there's still engineers that are like, yeah, we're not really sure how all that worked, but it did. Like we had no idea. But anyway, that's who I'm rooting for. Go King Kendrick Lamar. Chiefs Eagles. We'll be back to talk about it, like I said, in a couple weeks. Any closing thoughts, my friend?
Uh, yeah. I mean, I think we've talked a lot about it. We've said a lot. Go Chiefs, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I was. That's what I was actually waiting on. That was my signifier that the show is over. This is Kellen,
This is Casen.
and as always, we'll see you at the next stop.